Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. So it's been a while since I recorded a video, and the reason for this is that I have a new job. I am now working on education at the Solana Foundation. So for the last 3 months, I've been onboarding to a whole new technology stack, a whole new community, but now I am ready to start again making videos. And today we are going to see how you can use large language models, or AI, to learn pretty much any topic. So the topic that I'm going to cover today is one that I'm not particularly well versed. The idea behind this is that I want to show you the technique that I would really use to learn something new. And this is a technique that I've used throughout my new job just because there was so much context to absorb, there was so much new topics for me to learn. So I'm going to give you a real life example. And this will be learning what is Alpenglow. This is not super important for the topic of the video. I'm just picking a pretty hard topic just to showcase this technique of how you can educate yourself and learn better by using AI tools. So Alpenglow essentially is going to be what powers the Solana blockchain in a few months. It is a whole rewrite of the consensus. So already for people who are not deep into technical blockchain work, this is probably a lot of jargon, and it is exactly the point. So we're going to see how we can use a complicated topic and boil it down into a few steps where we can actually learn something. So let's go here to Excalibur, because I want to map out a strategy for learning with AI. So I think the first thing that we want to do is we want to, of course, pick a topic. And here, the reason this is important is because when you will be learning, the topic you choose will influence how you learn. So for example, if you want to learn something specifically for coding, you will use AI to create coding exercises for you. If you want to learn something at a more theoretical level, for example, this Alpenglow here algorithm, is not something I want to code myself. And the reason being, I'm not a protocol engineer. I don't go deeply into the inner workings of a blockchain. I'm learning all of this, especially to teach it well to people, to make a coherent story about the whole blockchain when I'm explaining to people. But I'm not going to spend my whole time myself, writing this consensus algorithm. This is clearly above my own, I would say talent level, if I'm honest. But I still need to understand it. I still need to learn it enough that I can talk to people at conferences or in the classroom when I'm meeting people. So this is why the first step is picking a topic, and the second step is adjusting your method. And here you'll have a few choices. For example, you could decide use coding practice, or you could decide to use a pretty amazing feature that I'm going to show you from Google called NotebookLM, but use NotebookLM for study practice. Or lastly, you could use the ChatGPT Study Mode. So this is why after you pick your topic, you need to ask yourself a few questions. So okay, so am I learning something I want to remember in code? So am I learning something technical that I'm going to write tactically with my hands? I'm going to be tactile with it. I'm going to play around. I'm going to reverse engineer the code. I'm going to try to understand line by line. In this case, you will use coding practice. Now, if you're studying, if you're learning a topic which is more focused on actually understanding what is blockchain, or you're studying for an exam in a topic where you need to discuss and write an essay, this is where you will use the last two. You will use NotebookLM and ChatGPT Study Mode. Okay, but there's still a technique to this. So once you've decided if you're going to use which one of the three, and generally I would say coding practice is on its own, and these last two here are pretty much combined together. They're mix and match. But I would say you split your technical learnings with coding and your more general study with these last two things. But by the way, even after you've coded something, you can go and use NotebookLM. And I'm going to show you a bit what this product is just in a moment. So the next step when you want to learn something is you will want to deeply research the topic. This is important because large language model have a cutoff. This means that they were trained on almost all the data imaginable that is openly available on the web, and sometimes even not openly available because they do crawl some data which they're not supposed to. But just to give you an idea, Alpenglow was announced a few months ago, back in the spring. So this is not something that ChatGPT 4 or 4.0, for example, would have in their training data, because simply they would just have maybe a few posts, a few blog posts on it, but not something deeply technical. So what I will do here is I will use deep research to gather as much information possible. Okay, so let's take a step back. And what is deep research? So deep research is a tool which exists in a few large language model providers. So it exists in Gemini. ChatGPT offers it. Claude has a limited mode, which I find good, but I think for me the best one is the one in ChatGPT. So you'll have a limited number of users if you're on the free package. However, if you have a monthly subscription, you'll have a bit more. So still be a bit judicious in how many you generate, just because you're unlimited amount, because this uses a lot of compute. So deep research essentially is a request for ChatGPT to run a really long research on the web for you. It will scout resources across research paper, Reddit, GitHub. It will scan as much research, as much material as it can to produce a big outline, a big detailed report of the topic that you are researching. So let's take this example of Alpenglow. I went in and I just selected deep research in the tools down at the bottom. And then what I had to do was ask it research the Alpenglow algorithm proposed for Solana. Then the next step, it is going to ask you a few precision. So for example, it will ask you, what are you most interested in? Now it's just asking me to narrow down because I asked a pretty loud topic, not loud, but like large topic. Sometimes it would ask you follow-up. So it would ask you 3 or 4 questions to narrow down, but now it just wants to focus a bit more. So it asked me just, what's the focus of this research? And I told it that I want to understand it. I don't want to have the most technical understanding, but I'm a web dev by trade. So I told him, I told ChatGPT, I understand web development. So boil it down to me in a way which will make sense for me. And then it will start this research. And as you see, it's searching for a lot of things, searching for blog posts. Ilias.dev, by the way, Ilias always has, in my opinion, some of the best content on Solana. So it's already doing a good job of finding the right places. It's reading also on Hansa, which is the research company behind a lot of the cool research in Solana happening. And then it's going to take a good 10 minutes, and it's going to create this report for me, which is a really big and long report. So once you came here, and this is the part, we're used to going quick with AI, but this is the part where you want to slow down. Instead of just skimming through, you will actually take the time to really read the report, read the full report. And if you're really serious about your learnings, you will probably also want to read the sources to fact check a bit of these things. And this is important because understand that with AI, your mental capacities, if you just accept things as they come, you start to lose this ability of creative thinking, of also critical thinking. And this is not how you want to use AI. You don't want to be a code monkey just pressing enter on your V0 or your Claude Code CLI. You want to understand what's happening. And if you're not, this is where you're going wrong. So you will take the time, you will turn off that TikTok brain that is all rotting in us, and you will instead use that brain to read the full report and a few sources if you think that's needed. Once you've done that, this is when you will jump to NotebookLM. So NotebookLM essentially is a tool developed by Google which allows you to pull in a bunch of different sources. So you can pull in YouTube videos, you can pull in research papers. In our case, what we will do is that we will copy this code and we will have it as a source here. So after you paste in your sources, what NotebookLM will do is that it will scan these sources and it will be your workspace for studying and for asking questions. There's a lot of things you can do. You can ask for an audio overview, which I think is my favorite. You can make a mind map. You can ask questions, so you could get quiz on it. But I think the one I want you to focus the most on is the audio overview. There's a few reasons behind this. This will generate a full podcast of two people talking really realistically about your topic, and they will try to dumb it down, boil it down. If you've read everything, you might be thinking at this point, well, I've already read it. What is the point of me, listening to a dumbed down version of this? And the reason is repetition. You want to repeat it on other mediums. You want to have different ways of going about your topic, because this will start to make you connect more and will start to connect with what you've read. So you're starting to build your own mental map, your own context of the whole problem. So this will take a few minutes, and normally this podcast is not super long. So for example, right now, if you're reading about Alpenglow, maybe the paper, if you did a good job, will take you 30 minutes to 1 hour to 2 hours to read. And the podcast is going to be something like 15 to 20 minutes generally. So you will want to listen to that podcast, and believe me, it does a really good job at rehashing the material and putting it in a way that is fun and interesting. So go do your laundry, go do your jogging session. This is a good moment to just repeat and reinforce what you've learned. After you've done that, we go to my last step, which is actually practicing what you've just heard. Because in learning theory, there's a lot of things that are needed for something to stick in your head. One of these things is repetition. One of these things is using in a different context. So there's many learning techniques. So the one I want you to use after is practice. And for this one, we will use the ChatGPT Study and Practice Mode. So here, let's go back to ChatGPT. And if you see, we have selected our research tool. We're going to remove that tool, and we will instead pick up the Study and Learn tool. We will say, make me a quiz of 10 questions on Alpenglow. And this is an example now where you will have ChatGPT focus on acting as a tutor for you. And what is interesting is that by having the deep research already in its context, in this chat session, it will have the ability to fact check all of these questions. And it's not just relying on its own training data, where normally if you study with this on a newer topic, it will get a lot of hallucinations. So there you have it. This is how I would approach something more theoretical, like the Alpenglow algorithm. If I wanted to code it myself instead, what I would ask in this step, I would say, for example, if coding, I would say generate practice problems, but don't give the answers. So I would say, for example, if you're learning to manage memory in Rust, to manage pointers or lifetime or borrows, what you would do is you would ask, you would repeat the same process, right? You would read as much as you can. You would try to think of it a bit like getting your own teacher to teach you something in university. But after university, you have homeworks. You have to practice implementation. Otherwise, things won't stick. So this is where if you're trying to remember something in code specifically, step 5, instead of using the study mode, you would ask for practice problems, where you would go into your own environment, you would implement them, and there you go. That is my own learning technique. This is something I actually use regularly on my own. Let me know if you like this, if you want more examples, and have a great one.